Okay, we are going to take a look at one of my favorite mega channels in the world. It's called Moses Coulee, and it's a very impressive channel. But more than it just being an impressive mega channel in the Washington Scablands, it is one of the best channels to show that the Omak Plateau and the Okanagan Valley from British Columbia was one of the flood sources of the Washington Basin alongside Lake Missoula and many other sources to the north. So, let's go back to Moses Coulee. It is a very impressive channel, very straight banks in this part of the channel, which is very characteristic of high-speed water flow. Over a mile wide, and this guy's over 1,000 feet deep, almost 1,200 feet deep, with sheer vertical cliffs on both sides. And it does have one terrace step. It's not very clean, but this would be that second terrace step. So you've got the valley, 1, and then 2. Huge difference between these two riverbanks. Then let's go all the way into the modern floodplain. So during the rainy season, when Washington gets a lot of rainfall and snow melt, this is what is full of water. This little ravine here. So when it's completely full, how many feet is that? 80 feet wide. Inside a larger valley, almost 2,000 feet wide, and then the mega channel being 1.3 miles wide. So we see from these terraces, we see the decrease, huge amounts of water, then a flow that's nowhere near that to make this, and then the modern, which is even nowhere near that. So let's connect this to the source of the Okanagan. So this upper part is also a good channel. Not quite as deep, but still very impressive. How many miles? 1.23. So yeah, it's a good mega channel if it's over a mile. And where is that trajectory coming from? It's going up this way. It's directly connected with this Okanagan Valley. You can see that if water is coming down here, flowing over the Okanagan Plateau, it's going to go right into Moses Coulee. And it got funneled along this side, and it collected right here to make such a nice canyon. It also got funneled around this little mountain here. Now, this pushes up the flood level almost 1,000 feet higher than what it said. It's said to not be as impressive as what the erosion shows. So let's dive into this erosion onto this mountainside. Let's see what we find. And we find mounds. So these mounds are made from water flowing between them and sculpting. So this was completely covered in sheet water flow. And then you can see the ripples. Ripples and mounds. That's just too good. I mean, what a beautiful, beautiful hillside. Decorated in flood sculpting. Let's do a little wavelength check on this guy. Could do beginning of crest to beginning of crest. 33 feet. Not huge. But you're not going to get a 33-foot ripple from rain. That's just too much for rain. So this is a part of the Washington flooding way up here on this mountain. So in my previous video, I did a video on dry falls where I talk about the Okanagan Valley. And Dry Falls is one of the most iconic landscapes of flood erosion. This beautiful double cataract. That's even barely a triple, too. I call it a triple. Intermediary ridge. But what we've learned from this area, from this landscape, is we've got these furrows or lineations. These are ruts from sheet water flow in the Grand Coulee. And when we go into a spot like this, we find streamlined rocks, which would be rock drumlins, made by water, not ice, which is a controversial statement, but very true. And then we've got lines of mounds. These lines of mounds we find all over the place. And so if we, if we understand this as flooding erosion, if this is what we should expect, mounds and sediment drumlins as well as rock drumlins, if that's what we should expect from flooding, then when we go to the Okanagan Valley, now keep in mind all this is flood erosion, okay? But as soon as you get to the Okanagan Valley, oh no, only a glacier flowed through here. No, that's not true. If we dive into this, first of all, we find mounds all over the place, right? And then we find sediment drumlins in mound paths. So this is a little bit of a recap. And then you also find parallel ravines with scours. So everything about the Okanagan Plateau is showing us water erosion coming down from the Okanagan Valley. And we also find streamlined rocks. The rocks get streamlined. Let me find some good examples of that. I mean, they're really all over the place, but you can see how this is streamlined. Now, this is all, keep in mind, this is all glacier erosion as far as the consensus goes. And then we also see all these furrows. We can dive into finding some mega channel banks. And especially right here, really nice mega channel banks wrapping around both sides of the Omak. And then it goes down. Right here, there's a bunch of terraces. Where are those pesky terraces at? See the channel bank there? Oh yeah, this is what I'm looking for. Right, so you can see the steps of the decrease of the water flow. And so that water, when it came down the Okanagan over the Omak, where do you think it went? If it's got all that high-speed trajectory, it's diving right into the Moses Coulee. And so that's what carved this canyon. And when we look at this deposit right here, we see a big lobe of sediment. That happened when the water current was slowing, but it was still powerful enough to push and leave this big round deposit. And then when we zoom in to this other part of the deposit, we find mounds, right? So this is a feature of a floodplain. Not all floodplains have it, but ones that have impressive canyons, they sure do. And then also the accretion ridges from the edges of the current. But, hold on guys, it gets better. Beautiful curving canyon. But wait a minute, what's this? We know that feature. We see that all over the Washington Scablands. These are huge potholes. Okay, this is where the turbulence was. Imagine a whirlpool spinning, who knows how far above it. But it was wide enough to carve this pothole. And it was sustained in one place long enough to carve this pothole, I don't know, probably 10, 15, 20 feet deep. And let's get a measurement 200 feet. That's very impressive. Then we take a step back, and now let's look at these clean corners. Those are also terraced steps. It's a terraced landscape. And I don't think anyone would disagree with that, given the fact that there's a mile-wide canyon right next to it. So that's what all of these are. And then you've got the floodplain feature of mounds. So that's the Moses Coulee. It's a very impressive landscape. I definitely want to get some drone shots of this area. So if you want to support me doing that, you can subscribe to my Patreon. Send me a little change for gas money. That would be pretty sweet. But man, that's a nice canyon. And then it flows down as a tributary to the Columbia. And then also this right here, this canyon just emerges out of nowhere from flat land to this big canyon. It doesn't have a vertical cliffs, it's more of a V shape. But for it to begin this suddenly is quite impressive. So you're seeing water flow over that land as well. And then you get to the famous Potholes Coulee, which gets all the notoriety around Washington. And rightfully so. It is amazing. I couldn't even get this in one drone shot because it's so massive. The width of this guy, if you count both of them, 1.5 miles. And then you've got these suddenly emerging ravines before it. And then you've got some smaller ravines cutting through another channel down here. And this is some nice mega scale ripples, which are how many feet? 272. Huge deposit with some nice ripples on it. So if we go zoom way out, we have to go all the way over here to find the Missoula basins, which flowed out through here and through here. But do you really think that's responsible? I mean, yeah, it's probably responsible for this. Maybe it's responsible for this. But water flowing through here matches that trajectory so much better. And then when you get to Moses Coulee, I mean, it just lines up perfect with the Okanagan. That it makes a really hard case to say, yeah, water spilling through here carved this, right? Just doesn't line up. So you have to add more water. And when we get to Vancouver Island and its Marine Canyon, we see a ton of water flowing out through here. And the debris flow traveled very, very far to make canyons. Not only travel that far, but to have erosion that far out is incredible. So yeah, and then if you ask yourself, where did all this rock go? You know, the rock from Moses Coulee, all of this rock 1,000 feet deep was removed. Well, where is its deposit? Is some of it here? That's probably likely. But a lot of this rock from the Washington channeled scablands had so much inertia that the Columbia River took it all the way out to the ocean. And that debris flow is what carved this huge canyon. And then you've got a huge fan deposit. So some of the rock from Moses Coulee is probably right in here in this fan deposit. Huge fan deposit, and then there's some canyons flowing over the top of it. and it probably linked up with this canyon as well that goes hundreds of miles offshore. And this is one of my favorite marine canyons because look at that. Terrace steps going down. So you've got the mud flow decreasing in stages just like the canyons we've seen in Washington. And look at how this feature is streamlined. It flowed around both sides of this obstacle. Not to mention it navigated through a mountain range, an underwater mountain range made by tectonic forces. So yeah, the Washington scablands are very, very impressive. And the water height and the water sources are extremely underrated. And there are more there are more sources to the channeled scablands that I haven't yet mentioned. So stay tuned and subscribe so you don't miss it, because there's some features in southern or northern Oregon that make everything absolutely incredible and completely changes everything we know about the Washington scablands. So stay tuned, like, subscribe, and give me a comment. Just say something. Ask a question. I love to answer questions. So that's this video. I hope you guys enjoyed watching. Let me know if you have any questions. And you guys have a great day. Bye.